Hello, geometry students. I'm taking a look at your Geometry Unit 3 Parallel and Perpendicular Lines Quiz 3-3. I think it's really supposed to be 3-2 or something like that he posted. But parallel and perpendicular lines on a coordinate plane. So what we're doing here is for number one, and you could pause this as needed, but I'm going to give you a little bit of guidance, a little bit of clarification on this, but I can't take you too far. I'm probably taking you too far on some of these, but utilize this help. If A and B, C and D, find the value of x so that the lines are parallel. So we're going to take A and B together. So I'm going to have x1 and y1, x2 and y2. I like to label these so that I'm working this out when I'm using that formula that I'm going to be needing to use. And then C and D, this is going to be my x1, my y1. This is going to be my x2 and y2. Those are 2's there. I know it's kind of small, but that's why I'm telling you. So, we're going to use this formula for slope. Slope equals your y2 minus your y1 over your x2 minus your x1. Now, remember, we said in class that you could also do this. You could take your y1 minus your y2 as long as you take your x1 minus your x2, as long as you follow the same order. But I'm going to utilize this. I'm going to take y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1, because you see that more often, and I don't want to cause any confusion, but you can do it the other way, and you'll get the same answer. So you'll see that I set this up, and you may want to freeze this. I set up the first one, actually C and D. This is my C and D here. So this is C and D because I didn't have a variable there, and I saw that the M, or the slope, is -½ And I know that my AB, this is for my AB, I know for my A and B that I'm going to take my y2 minus my y1, and then my x2 minus my x1. I don't know what that is. But I know that once I start working this out, it needs to be the same slope. Remember, M equals slope. So the slope is the y2 minus y1 or x2 minus x1. So it needs to be the same slope. So whatever this x is, I know that once I start working it out, it needs to equal -½ because I have -½ over here. So I multiply both sides. I start to solve it for you. I multiply both sides by -3 minus x. And so that gets rid of it on the 6th side, over here where the 6 is, and then I multiplied it over here. And then I have this part of the problem, and then, this is all that I have left. This is going to tell you what your x equals. I didn't need to leave it in parentheses, so if that confuses you, it could be just like this, okay? And then just solve for this x. So you're going to add 3 to both sides. That's going to tell you what -x is, and then get rid of the negative on both sides. Okay, and that will tell you what your x is. And once you plug it back in here, it'll be 6 over this, and it should simplify to -½ Same with number 2. I went ahead, and you might want to just take a picture of that, or pause that, label those. I end up figuring out my P and my Q first, and then I'm going to go for my R and S. And perpendicular means I need the opposite inverse, so I'll explain that here in a moment. So here's my P and Q. This is my P and the Q. y2 minus y1, x2 minus x1. Remember, if you're subtracting by negative, it becomes positive whenever you are doing that. And I end up getting 10 over -8 or -5/4. So I know that my RS, this R and S over here, once I start working it out and I have this Y over here, I know that it needs to be the opposite. So it's not negative, it's going to be positive. It's going to be the inverse, so I'm going to flip it, so it's going to be 4/5. So you're going to take this, and I started to work it out for you. I multiplied everything by a -5. So I multiplied by -5, so I'm just left with the y equals, or y minus 3 equals Negative 5 times 4/5 gives me a negative 4. Now all you have to do is solve for y. So add 3 to both sides. That would give you your y value. Number 3, it says write a linear equation to represent the line shown on the graph. So what you're going to do is you're going to, put the slope here. Remember, the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So you're going to have y equals whatever the slope is. So, go from this point to this point. It goes up how many and over how many. So it's the rise over the run. And if you can simplify that, do it. And then you have your x plus whatever the slope, or the y-intercept, the y-intercept, where it intercepts this. So what is this point right here on the y? This is your y-axis, okay? This is 0. What is this down here? This is my x-axis. So what is this point right here? That would give you, so I'll tell you it's going to be negative, so you're going to change that plus to a negative, whatever. Okay? So write that out. And so you're going to have y equals some number x plus some number, which is the y-intercept. Okay, number 4 and 5. Determine if the lines are parallel or perpendicular or neither. I have an example of parallel. An example would be if their slopes were the same. So negative 2 and negative 2, that would be the same. And then remember, perpendicular is the opposite inverse. So here is an example. If you had one slope negative 2 and another slope 1/2, it's the opposite, it's positive, and it's the inverse, it's 1 over 2. Okay? So take a look at this. This is already in slope-intercept form, so you see that the slope is negative 2. I have to put this into slope-intercept form, so I have to subtract 10x from both sides, and then I divide it by 5. So here you see the slope here. So you got to determine, is that parallel, perpendicular, or neither? Comparing this slope to this slope. Do the same thing for this one, because I took you too far with number 4. Go ahead and do the same thing. This one is already in slope-intercept form. You see the slope right here is negative 3. Get y by itself over here. So subtract x from both sides and then divide both sides by a negative 3 and see what you get, okay? And tell whether it's parallel, perpendicular, or neither. For 6 and 7, write the equation of the line in slope-intercept form with the given point and the slope, or 2 points. So I'm given and this is the point slope, and this is point slope form. So I'm going to take y minus y1. Here's your y1. So it's going to be 13. So you're just going to work this problem out. Y minus 13 equals, what's my slope? Slope is negative 2. X minus x1 is a negative 7, so my minus becomes plus. So minus a negative is a plus 7. And then just work this problem out. Get the y by itself on one side, use the distributive property and all that, okay? So you'll end up with y equals, okay, whatever. You'll have a number before the x, and you'll have some plus or minus your slope, okay? For this one, for number 7, first of all, you have to figure out the slope. So take your y2 minus your y1, and that's going to be 1 plus 11 because you're subtracting negative. And this is going to be negative 2 plus 5 because you're subtracting, this is subtracting your x1. So it's going to be negative 2 plus 5, okay? Okay, and then once you figure out your slope, go ahead and put that in here and pick any two sets of numbers. You'll get the same answer. I would pick these two right here, okay? And that would be your point, just because negative 2 and 1 seems easier than negative 5 and negative 11, So whatever your slope is, you'll put in for m, and then here's your y1. Like I said, I would use the 1 And then the x1 would be the -2. If you feel more comfortable because this is y1 and x1 and use your y1 and x1, go ahead and plug those in there. Just remember, when you have a negative y1 is going to be positive, so it's going to be a -11. Two negatives make a positive, so it's going to be +11. And this is a negative x1, so that's going to that's going to be a +5, a +5. And then go ahead and work that out. For number 8 and 9, you're going to do the same thing. That's why you're going to do the same thing. That's why I drew this line up to 6. Okay, so in other words, they're telling you to write an equation that passes through this point, and you have a slope of -2/3, because -2/3 parallel is going to have the same slope. So you just have to do what you did up here. Use this formula and plug in these 2 points. This is my x1, this is my y1, and this is my slope. And just put it into that equation and work it out. You'll have y equals something, x plus or minus something. Okay. For number 9, same thing. You're going to do just like number 6, but it's going to be perpendicular. So perpendicular means it's going to be the opposite inverse of -1/4. The opposite inverse of -1/4 is 4. So I'm giving you your slope, and then just use that point slope form. This would be your x1. This would be your y1. Use these numbers in this equation. Remember, when you're subtracting a negative, it becomes positive. Subtracting a negative becomes positive. So these are both going to become positive in this. And you know your slope is already 4, so your m is going to be 4. Okay? And then you should end up with something for number 9. Y equals something in front of an x plus or minus some number. Okay? Good luck on this test. Hopefully I've given you enough help and not too much help so that you could show what you know.